Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I get to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And oh my goodness, we are in our HR Southwest Conference Spotlight series, and I'm bringing you another special guest. As today I'm getting to talk with Nathan Magnuson. Nathan is the founder and CEO of Leadership in a Box. He's also one of our 2025 HR Southwest Conference speakers. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I know you have a new book coming out. You're an author. You got a lot going on. So, hey, good to see you, Nathan.
Bruce, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we were just talking. I always like to start my show reflecting with when I met my guests, how I might know my guests. Some of the guests I've interviewed, I just met them whenever we did the interview. But for you, we were talking about in 2024, you were an exhibitor at the HR Southwest Conference. How was that? Do you remember that?
It was actually speaker last year and it
O-
went so well we decided let's do speaking and exhibiting this year. So
Okay.
we'll have a booth out there. I think the presentation is first thing Tuesday morning. So get your coffee and come at 8 a.m. But Bruce, I was mentioning when you go to enough conferences, the ones that are well organized really stand out, and that was the
Hmm.
experience I had last year. So we're really looking forward to the new one coming up in October.
I love that. And I'm looking forward to talking to you about your topic. It's going to be winning the heart of colleague engagement, which I love the word winning. And everybody wants to talk about engagement. As a matter of fact, I remember when I became the Dallas HR president in 2012. I know I'm dating myself. This is a long time ago. Engagement was at the top, like of things that business leaders, HR professionals were thinking about, and here we are. We're still talking about that. I know we're going to get into a lot of different things, but what do you think that is?
Well, it's interesting, Bruce. Things have really changed between now and back in 2012. Obviously,
Mhm.
engagement was important then. It's important now. A lot's happened in life and a
Mm.
lot's happened in our workforce since then. I think just the pandemic era just got people rethinking a lot as far as the role of work in my life, but then also what do people need to be engaged or in many cases re-engaged. And so there's a lot that is still the same, but there's a lot that's different now as well. And this is our number one most popular or most requested topic for speaking at these conference events. So I'm excited.
Mm.
I think the people who come will be excited, and there are going to be some ridiculously practical takeaways too. So it's going to be a good time.
I love that. And as a matter of fact, that's the name of your new book, Ridiculously Practical Leadership. That's going to be
Right.
coming out soon. So I can't wait to hear more about that. Hey, before we dive in here, I would love for you to share just a brief highlight of Leadership in a Box. What's that all about, and how do you serve your customers?
So, Bruce, I spent the majority of my career on the corporate side of talent development. And so I was one of those pandemic individuals who thought, you know what, I wonder if there's another way that I could make even more of an impact within this
Mhm.
field, but maybe in a different seat. And leadership in a box, the concept had been on my whiteboard for several years. And so decided to go for it. We said, we need a ridiculously practical leadership development toolkit. And how we define that is it's relevant to people's work. It's easy for everyone to use. It fits the amount of time people have available, which is usually not much. And people can take action right away, and it scales across the whole enterprise. So
Mm.
it's great to bring in Nathan for an event, but then that has a cost every single time to it. Well, what if we gave you all the ridiculously practical toolkits and they were so easy to use that you could, whether you deployed one or 100, it was kind of the same price and you could scale across your enterprise. So that was really the problem that I was trying to solve with Leadership in a Box is how do we make it practical, but how does part of the definition for practical also means scalable? For all of those nurse managers, for all those first-time supervisors, for all those assistant chief financial officers, for all the engineering project leaders, how do we get what they need most out to the masses in a way that works for everyone? So, man, we're 4 or 5 years in now, and
Mm.
things are going really well.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that. I do want to get into your topic, and we're talking about the HR Southwest Conference coming October the 12th through the 14th in Fort Worth, Texas, at the Fort Worth Convention Center. I believe this is year number 84. Is that incredible or what? I want to hear though. I want to hear the Nathan Magnuson story. Like where did you grow up, and what in the world led you to developing leaders and in your passion today?
Bruce, I'm from Kansas City.
Hmm.
Proud to be from Kansas City. I tell people, proud to be from Kansas City, proud to be in Dallas now. Um, there's some individuals, they know exactly what they're going to do in life from day
Mm,
one. You also have folks who have no clue and, still trying to figure it out. So I was kind of in the middle where I knew I want to go to college and I want to get a degree in business. So I
mm,
don't exactly know where from there, but I know it's business. So I was fortunate enough, second semester senior year, I took an organizational leadership class on a recommendation. I didn't even need it. Someone said, "This really seems like you would like this. You should take it." And that was my favorite class of all college. And I said, I don't, I still remember that lightning strikes moment where I said, I don't know what they call jobs in this field, but I want one. And so the thing was, though, you graduate from college with high aspirations, but like, hey, I just need a job with the paycheck. And so working in an accounting related job for a couple years and realizing there's not, not a great fit, but thinking there's not really a clear path from this to doing leadership development, talent development, at least without a graduate degree.
mm,
And so to find the dollars for that, I decided never considered this in my life, but I think it's time to talk to that military recruiter, see if we
mm,
can find some dollars. So I remember looking through every single job in at least in the Army, and I found one in special ops where I thought I might be able to use my business education in a hands-on applied way while also getting some money for grad school. So went off to Fort Bragg, the special
mm,
warfare school out there. And of course, they told us, "You guys know you're going to Iraq, right?" And we're like, they didn't say that exactly, but it makes
mm,
sense. I was
mm,
wondering why the education benefits were so good. So did that for a year.
mm,
Came back, got that grad school money, and from there joined one of the big consulting firms. They moved me to the Washington D.C. office. They said, "You've got security clearance with the military, great. Let's put you on a project with the FBI. They're building a new leadership development program. After that, go to the Defense Intelligence Agency." And so this is one of the moments of great irony, Bruce, was when we were doing missions in Iraq. We had missions almost every day, and a typical day I would have a pistol, a rifle, and a light machine gun, and my laptop because we're special ops, right? So the whole thing that's part of the uniform. But then to switch to Washington, D.C., junior consultant in kind of
mm,
some high stress, give me your best recommendation now, except the people we're talking to would have a pistol barrel pointing out the bottom of their pant legs. I'm like,
mm,
man, the tables have really turned here. I'm the one without the weapons in this situation. I better be on my game here. So that was a real good experience. Tough, but good. I encourage, especially young professionals, if you can pick some tough assignments early on, you'll
mm,
accelerate your development and your skills for what comes next. That was definitely the case for me, especially as I transitioned over to the corporate side for several Fortune 500 organizations, being in that talent leader role where they say we've got leaders all over the country, different cities, regions, business units. Someone's got to put together a strategy and a plan and make it happen. And so I tended to like the tough assignments. That's just what I was used to at that point. I
mm,
want it to be complicated. I don't want it to be too easy. I want to really have to think through how to do it. And so that kind of went through pandemic time frame of saying, okay, I've been doing this for 10 or 11 years. I wonder if I could design my own, kind of like the ridiculously
mm,
practical tool that I wish I had as the talent leader in all those roles. What if I made one that we could put in the hands of talent leaders everywhere that could just make their job easier? So that's one of the interesting things too, Bruce, that I don't know how many people think about this is if you see yourself as your own customer, it's really easy to identify their wants and needs because that's who you used to be. And so I think
Mm.
that's one of the advantages we have now. There's no way I could have said, I want to do that right out of school. But after gaining the experience and knowing that this is when talent leaders are happy, this is when they're frustrated, this is when other people are frustrated with the talent leader,
Mm.
you just put all of that together and solve for it. It's kind of put on the little consulting hat. Um, I think that's, I think that's where life gets fun, and that's where work can get fun when you let the experience teach you how to make it better, and then you can pass
Mm.
it along in a way that really works.
I'm just writing down the word fun. I think people want to have more fun, and I love how you align with that, create, using your experience to try to figure out how can I create alignment here. There's so much here. Nathan,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is a great story. First of all, thank you for your service.
you're welcome.
Isn't it interesting how you go along this journey? You're talking about picking these tough assignments. I love that advice, by the way. But you go along this journey and it's so unclear. And you're just moving along. You're just like, hey, I'm just trying to find my lane here. And then all of a sudden you look back and you're like, it's so clear. It's incredible clear. Real quick, before we get into this topic here, was there a moment when you said, I found, like, you started this leadership in a box? Was there a moment when you said, hey, I found my lane, I found my calling? Like, because you started out saying, hey, I just want to get a business degree. And now you are in this lane of significance.
Yeah, but the scary thing, Bruce, is it's an ongoing journey. So I think one of your questions there is, Nathan 10 years from now and
Hmm.
even 20 years. And dude, it could look a whole lot different then, than it does now. So it's one of those things where
Yeah,
most of it feels like, day to day, you know what
yeah,
you're doing, but then there will be small concentrations of times where things change rapidly.
yeah.
And so one of those was in the military in Iraq for me. I remember, I mean, we were just so busy, missions every day, but afterwards, after you're prepped up for tomorrow,
Yeah.
there's not a lot to do other than go to the gym and work out, and then, you play video games or put a movie on while you're waiting. And I knocked out a couple graduate school classes over there and read tons of the Dale Carnegie, the Zig Ziglar books, all that. I had to stop setting goals because my mind was expanding so
Mm,
quickly. And one of the things just in the last couple of years that's been happening again. So who knows what'll come
love
next?
that.
Whether how the lanes will change and shift, or
Yeah.
whether the highway just expands. It's
Yeah.
not one lane now. You went from 4 lanes to 6 lanes. It's exciting and scary just to see what happens.
Love that. Okay, well, let's talk about the HR Southwest Conference. You're going to
Yeah.
be talking about winning the heart of colleague engagement. What's that all about? And talk, I don't know, you don't have to share your presentation here, but share maybe just, I mean, something you're going to talk about that to get the listeners excited about this upcoming session.
I think that everyone immediately recognizes that engagement's a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, so much of our workforce is unengaged, not just underengaged, but unengaged despite the amount of dollars and despite the executive visibility on this issue, right? There's budget being spent, there's time being spent, there's meetings being spent on how do we engage our workforce, but the numbers really aren't moving. So I think that's frustrating for a lot of people, but it's also personal because we all know what it's like to be in a job that's just not getting out of us what we hope to contribute and not returning what we're hoping to receive back. So it's a very personal one as well. One of the questions that we'll ask at the very beginning of that presentation is, think about a time when you were very engaged at work and what were the factors that engaged you. And so I'll tell you what we'll hear back, Bruce. So kind of to give the answer up front, people will say a variation of two things.
Okay.
I was really connected to the people, or I was really connected to the work. And then we'll say, wouldn't it be great if you could have both of those things? I'm very connected to the work itself and to the people I work with. That would be like super engagement. Most people will say absolutely. In fact, that's our definition of engagement with leadership in a box is the amount of emotional commitment a person has to an organization's, its priorities, and its people. So essentially, it's commitment and connection to the work and to the people itself. I think one of the really key concepts that we talk about is the anatomy of engagement. Just to put it in now I'm not a biologist, but engagement does have an anatomy. It's the hands, the head, and the heart. And you'll
Right.
notice the topic of the presentation is winning
Mm.
the heart, so you can probably tell where that's going.
Hmm.
But the hands represent people's physical needs. So people need, what do they need to work and to live? What do they need their work to do for them? So they need to be paid. They need uh, equipment. They need training. They need, to be safe in their roles.
Mm.
And in return, they give their physical labor. So it's kind of a physical, winning the hands means it's a physical interaction. I
Right.
contribute my physical effort and I receive what I need physically to live. The head represents people's mental needs. So they need a rationale for remaining with an organization long term. Maybe they need a career path. They need to know where their lane is taking them in that organization. Maybe a longer term incentive to be there. But the heart is the one that's special. So it represents the opportunity uh, to be emotionally connected to the work and to the people they work with. And so the light bulbs just really go on at this point when we mention, hey, you can win people's hands and you can win people's heads, but they are still waiting to be engaged because it's not an emotional connection and an emotional commitment yet. They have to be connected to the people they work with and to the work itself. And the fun thing is when you've won someone's heart, they often contribute their hands and their head just along with it because it's very hard for someone to leave an organization where they're connected to the work and to the people. And so at that point in the presentation, that's early on in the presentation, we'll see the light going off, for people as they'll say, but it's good and bad at the same time because people will say, that's it, that's the missing link. But then you lose that joy for a moment because then people say, no wonder all these initiatives that we're focused on aren't working,
Mm.
because like I am in the middle of a very important project that's been a long time coming.
Mm.
We're doing a big comp adjustment or, we're investing in, this career path and all that. And they see that even once we finish that, I will not get the result I was hoping for, which is an engaged workforce. And so
Mm.
we'll have to cheer people back up again and say, hey, you need to have your comp adjustments. You need to have your career paths. Like all of those are important. Don't just stop those, but let's talk about how we can get to winning the heart along the way.
Mm. That is
So
so good.
it'll be a special presentation.
Yeah, that is so good. I love that. Whenever I give presentations and I talk to different speakers, I always want to know their views on like what does success look like for you? Because a lot of times what I see is everybody gets pumped up in the conference. They're excited, they're energized. I learned some things. I'm equipped, and then they go back to the workplace and they get busy. And then they're kind of left trying to figure out, okay, how do I put this in play here? But for you, when you finish speaking, I don't know, what does that look like? How do you know you have had success within that particular session? Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, there are. We'll talk about the anatomy of engagement. We'll also share the seven drivers. The seven drivers are the seven levers that you can
Mm.
pull to get from low engagement to high engagement. But where we'll end, Bruce, is what's really special is we're not going to ask people to commit to 10 actions. And even if we did, that's too many. We're not going to ask people to remember all seven.
Yeah.
What we're going to ask them is think of one person on
Mm.
your team and think of one driver
Mm.
and make that into an action. So you'll say, hey, Susan has a lack of clarity in her role. If I clarify, who will do what by when, and here's what an A plus
Mm.
looks like, we can go from unengaged to engaged. Or you could say, Kevin has been floating a little bit in his role. He's been coasting. It's been a while since I had a conversation with him about, his growth opportunity.
Mm,
And we probably should have a conversation about his goals and maybe some new skills I can work on together within the work that he's doing that can re-engage him from a growth perspective. So, clarity and growth are two of the seven drivers. So very easy, one person, one action.
mm,
But the other thing, Bruce, is we say, okay, now put your name on there and
mm.
one action you can take to make sure that you have the engagement you need as well. And so that might be asking for better clarification for a part of your role or revisiting your growth opportunities or take another look at the seven drivers. Which one wouldn't re-engage you the most in your work? I think that's a big mistake a lot of us make, especially as leaders, as we think man, my engagement's not what's important. It's the organization I serve. Well, you go ahead and burn out, and that's not going to serve your
Uh,
organization well itself. So, folks will leave like I said, one person, one action, but then a second person who is yourself, and one action to engage yourself that you can do the very next week that you get home.
I love that. When you said that just now, I thought about, you and I were talking about we love reading leadership and listening to gurus. John Maxwell's one of those, and I think about how he always says you got to walk slowly through the crowd, and and you got to talk to people and have conversations with people. Hey, I'm just curious, real quick, before we kind of leave this topic, what is I don't know, for those listening, a lot of times I go to a session also because it's
Mhm.
not necessarily that I need help or improvement, but I want to validate what I'm doing is right because I feel like I have good engagement. You ever hear anybody share that, hey, we have great, good or great engagement? What does good or great engagement look like? Is it something you can kind of see on the bottom line, or is it that dotted line? What does great engagement look like?
Great engagement can look like a lot of things, Bruce. One of the biggest ones is people's retention.
Hmm.
So our
Hmm.
leaders, the workforce, can they not wait to get out of here and go work for someone else? Or are they sticking around quite a bit? I also encourage people, though, to not make that the litmus test because there is a lot that's
Uh,
going on in everyone's organization that is far beyond the control of any one person to make a difference. So, like, you are
hmm.
not stuck with low engagement just because your organization is kind of going through a little bit of turmoil right now. In fact, we'll say the number one driver of the seven drivers is a positive leader experience. And
Mm,
we all know that. Everything else could be going right, but if I'm having a negative experience with my boss, there is about 0% chance that I can be engaged. But it's more nuanced than do I have a good boss or a bad boss. It's a positive experience with my leader. But what it takes for me to have a positive experience from my leader may be different from what you need from
mm,
the same leader and someone else too. But then we also have to factor in that everyone has a bad day from time to time, so it's not going
mm,
to be perfect each time. Our work is constantly changing, and so there's so much working against us, and yet we can still get to that high engagement. That's kind of the gist of
mm,
it. We will reinforce there that the number one opportunity to engage anyone in the organization is that person's direct supervisor, and
mm-hmm.
so it does not matter how great your executive team is or your HR team, the people with the real power to engage an organization are each of those people in leadership roles.
I love that. I wrote down the word a positive leader experience.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Oh, this is going to be so good. I mean, I cannot wait for your session. I mean, we've just been talking a few minutes here. I have a full page of notes here, Nathan. Are you kidding me? So be sure when you sign up for the HR Southwest Conference, you can sign up at hrsouthwest.com. Be sure and make sure that you click the box of Nathan's session, winning the heart of colleague engagement. This is going to be so good. I cannot wait. Hey, before we finish here, I'd love to get to know you a little bit more and move to what I call is time to accelerate and ask you just some fun questions. You
Okay.
do a lot of speaking. You talked about being over in Iraq and you've worked in Washington D.C. You have a favorite city?
I do. I do. I do. I have two favorite cities,
Oh,
Bruce.
okay.
Dallas and Kansas City. So, I tell people, but you want to know something funny? So I grew up in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Remember watching the Cowboys games, America's team, they're winning all these Super Bowls. And for everyone else, they're like me, they're like, I'm an American, but that's not my team. And
Oh,
it just paints Dallas as this place where like, man, they got huge egos down there and all that. But I'll tell you what, I remember flying home from Iraq, and we went through DFW, and they had fire trucks with the big water cannons, and that plane flew underneath. We got off the plane, and there were just hundreds of people lined up with signs, and like we were going back to Kansas City. That's where our unit was, so it wasn't even our final stop. And just the amount of seriousness and just the amount of making it a big deal. I was like, man, someone even,
that's
people I don't
awesome.
even know noticed I was gone, and then they were grateful. So, that was a turning point. I thought, you know what? Dallas might be all right,
I
So
love that.
this could be a great place. And so
I love
any of
that.
my presentations, I say I'm proud to be from Kansas City. I'm proud to be in Dallas
I
now.
love that. I've made one trip to Kansas City, and it was for the Big 12 championship in 2006, the
Okay.
coldest football game I've ever been to in my life. And that's so fun. It was a lot of fun. Hey, okay. Got a couple more questions for you. One,
Okay.
you're a continuous learner, and you're helping people learn. And what's something you've always wanted to learn, though?
When I was in college, we went down to do a project at Chick-fil-A corporate headquarters. We were going to meet with one of the leadership development guys there, and I decided, you know what, let me call the CEO, the founder, Truett Cathy. We're going to be there anyways. See if he'd talk to some students. By the way, I tell students this now. You can get away with anything if you're a student. Just say like, I'm a student working on a project. You'll be surprised how many people say yes. So he said yes. We got to go up in his office, the late Truett Cathy, and
Wow.
ask him some questions. And I remember he had written a couple books that I had read. One of the stories was at his first restaurant with him and his brother. It was open 24/7, and so he would work a 12-hour shift, hand it over his brother a 12-hour shift, and they just
Wow.
like kept it going. Well, one time his brother got sick, so he had to pull, his shift, his brother's shift, his shift again, so 36 hours straight running this restaurant. So I had this awesome question. Every senior in college is like trying to find their path, or as you would say, find their lane, right? So I had this question I asked, how can we find something that we're so passionate about that we'll work 36 hours straight? And I just expected that it was just going to be this amazing answer. And it was very basic. It was just like, it's good to work hard. People should work hard and they just need to do what, they need to do. And I was so disappointed. But I had a question for him on what he would want to do differently. If he had to do it all over again, what would
Yeah.
you do differently? And once again, he gave me something that I did not expect. He said, you know what? I think I would have been pretty good at playing the piano. But it was funny because I had just decided when I graduate from college, I'm going to get myself some beginner piano lessons. And so I was pumped up because I said the thing you wished you would have done is already on my to-do list to
That
learn.
is
So I remember
fantastic.
I had 14 piano lessons. Still can't read the music, but I got someone to teach me the chords. And that was a lot of fun until a couple my last corporate move, the movers lost my one box with all my piano
What?
books, and so
What?
I don't think it wasn't Armstrong. So that's
Good.
my mistake. I wasn't using Armstrong. So the thing I've learned since then is after a move, you're just dying to like sign the papers. No, you go through every
I
box.
love
Spend the
that.
extra 15 minutes to mark every box.
I
So,
love that. You're
so
talking my language now, Nathan, and
yeah,
relocation.
I
I'll help
know.
you with that. Oh my
Right.
goodness. I love that. I took some piano lessons a few years ago and I learned how to play a few basic
Oh
songs
yeah.
and that was it. But I just
Benny and the
wanted to
Jets,
learn. I
right?
love that. I love that. Okay. You mentioned the final question earlier. I always like to ask my guests 10 years later, like Nathan, 10 years older, he's knocking at your door and you're going to answer that door. What's he going to tell you? What's your 10-year older self going to tell you right now?
10 years later, Nathan will say, "Hey, the cool stuff I'm doing now is
Yeah.
because of what you're doing
I love that.
right now.
I
So
love that.
hopefully that's the case.
This is going to be a lot of fun. The HR Southwest Conference coming to Fort Worth, Texas. It's going to be October the 12th through the 14th. And Nathan Magnuson is going to be there. He's going to be talking about winning the heart of colleague engagement. He's the founder and CEO of Leadership in the Box. You also are going to be exhibiting there.
That's right.
And so you're going to have to go and find out how you can elevate and create great positive experiences for your team members. This has been a lot of fun, Nathan. Thanks for coming on the show. Hey, for those who heard something and they can't wait till the conference to connect with you. They want to connect with you now, or maybe they're not able to attend this year and they just want to learn from you. How's the best way for them to connect or follow you?
Bruce, LinkedIn is the obvious easy choice. And then the website leadershipinabox.com. You can get the weekly ridiculously practical leadership newsletter there. But or come see us at the conference. We'll have copies of the ridiculously practical leadership book with us too.
That's going to be fun. And I appreciate again you coming on the show, being part of this Spotlight series. And man, this is going to be another great conference. I can't wait for it. And again, thanks for sharing your wisdom and helping all of our attendees just continue to grow and win the heart of colleague engagement. Thanks for coming on, Nathan.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Okay. Hey, I'll talk to you later, man.